Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is episode 3. That's 3 to you and me of Hillbilly Talk, and I am Shane Simmons. I got a question, and it's funny because I think in one of the first 2 episodes, or maybe both of the first 2, I talked about I don't really enjoy talking about politics, but I got a question that was, of course, about politics, and it's about as hot button, hot potato of an issue as you could have of a question. Doug Mitchell sent this in by email, and it was, why do Appalachians / Hillbillies vote for Donald Trump? And very simple question. A little bit more complicated of an answer, but I feel like I can do this, so wish me luck. It's funny because, I was looking around to see what other people's perspectives were because I just have my own, but I've got a really good idea of why. But anyway, I was looking through social media on Twitter /X, on Facebook, and on YouTube, and there's really very little, if anybody, that talks from a conservative perspective about Appalachia. Very odd. It is a very contained industry that supports, they're almost all liberal. You got your Barbara Kingsolvers, your Silas Houses, and on down the line. Almost all these people are very far left, and that's fine, but that's not representative of the other 70%. So we need to hear from somebody who is from that slant, and I guess I'm that guy right for now on this video. Because I do vote conservatively. I am not a Republican by any means, can't stand that party. I'm not a Democrat and never would be, but I am a conservative-ish person and I think that I represent a lot of the people that do vote for Trump in the sense that a lot of it goes back to Judeo-Christian values. We're raised in this area, and I don't care what kind of scoundrel you are. There could be somebody out under a car right now stealing a catalytic converter, but at their core, they have a belief in God. That's the way we were raised, a fear of God, a reverence for God, and I feel like that's being really stripped away, or certainly devalued in the Democratic Party. It just absolutely is. And if you try to see anything from a Christian perspective, if you comment on social media, anywhere, you'll get attacked immediately by some atheist who questions your intelligence and your blah, blah, blah. They come after you and attack you, and it's obviously a left-wing person every time. And I believe that is the number one reason. I really do. I think, like I said, the biggest scoundrel in the world here believes in God. And that makes a huge difference when it comes right down to which party, which candidate plays to that crowd. And at this point, obviously, Donald Trump is much more likely to do that than Kamala Harris. So that's one perspective. Another one is, and this is very much central Appalachia, not so much western North Carolina and East Tennessee even, but you got eastern Kentucky, southwest Virginia, West Virginia. A big reason is for coal mining. I think Hillary Clinton drove a stake in the heart of the Democratic Party, which when she made the comment, I'm paraphrasing, but she said something about we're going to be putting a lot of coal miners out of work. Now, that may have been taken out of context. It was just a little soundbite, but boy, did that hit home with a lot of people. There's a reverence here for coal miners that is on par with military veterans. If somebody served in World War II, was probably not held in that much more high esteem, if any, than someone who broke their back and worked their butt off and got black lung in the coal mines around here. Those people are treated with reverence, and anybody that says a word that's perceived as being negative, you are persona non grata after that. We don't want no part of you. And even for me, when I heard that, whether it's taken out of context or not, it's just you wouldn't utter those words. You shouldn't utter those words. So Trump, in contrast, he comes out, puts on the hard hat, and really plays to that crowd. And another big thing that Appalachians and Hillbillies like is acknowledgement. I don't think anybody with a functional brain here in Southwest Virginia, West Virginia, or Eastern Kentucky thinks that coal mining is coming back in some big way. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to be, certainly not to the level that it was early part of 20th century where it just dominated. No, that's never going to happen. Don't expect it to. But if you're trying to make things better for those folks who are in that industry, then you are absolutely going to get the support in this area. And a lot of people too, even if they don't work in it, in the industry, they have support for the industry. They do, like I said, they treat them like military veterans. You may not have worked in the mines, but you respect the people who did. and that's just completely born and bred here in this part of Appalachia. It just absolutely is. So I think Hillary Clinton really did a huge damage. And another thing that happened was the waning of the United Mine Workers Association's impact here, because it used to dominate. If you weren't in with the UMWA, you were dead in the water as far as politics. And now we've seen a lot of the people who pretended to be Democrats switching to be Republicans, or maybe they were Democrats pretending to be Republicans now, because you can't win unless you're a Republican here, which is one thing I'm not in favor of. I wish there was more actual true competition here, because what happens is if you win the Republican nomination in certain areas, you're just absolutely going to win no matter what. And these people tend to get lazy, lose focus, and they're not really trying to help their people in some cases. At least that's my opinion. And so I don't really like that. I wish there was a bigger push for people getting challenged in the primaries, at least, because there needs to be some kind of mechanism that holds these people accountable to fight for their people instead of trying to enrich themselves and try to better their own lives. But that's my opinion. So that's a big, huge part of it. I don't see any of that changing anytime soon. I think Kamala Harris is not even. I've not heard a word even attempting to address or pander or whatever you want to call it to Appalachians. And that's another reason why it not being competitive is bad for us. The fact Democrats don't need us, Republicans don't really need us because we're in the bag. So nobody even comes and plays to this audience anymore. Since there's the battleground states, and that's where everybody goes to, and that's who gets all the attention. Well, nobody cares about us anymore. Which another thing that Trump said that really resonated with me and a lot of other people was when he said that forgotten men and women will not be forgotten anymore. I know I'm paraphrasing that and butchered it, but basically words to that effect. When you hear words like that, we feel really forgotten here. So that really resonates with a lot of people here, and I feel like that's why Trump is way up here. And in all fairness, JFK was the exact same thing. John F. Kennedy came and all the photo ops he took with the coal miners, he really got to listen to people. He shook hands. He worked hard to earn that vote, and he is still held in high esteem here. It's kind of strange. You got people who, there's Trump lovers that love JFK. I like both of them. They're both people who played to our audience and showed us respect. That's what makes the difference. It's not the political party at all. It is more about who showed the respect and treated the coal miners with esteem, and that really gets loyalty from, and we're very loyal people. If you know anything about Appalachians, it's very, to a fault in some senses, but very loyal. So I don't see that changing anytime soon, but again, it's just amazing to me. If somebody would have told me 10 years ago that a billionaire from New York City, brash, obnoxious guy, would dominate, not only win, I wouldn't have thought even could be competitive. That's the antithesis of what people down here like, in theory. But the fact that he handled a few things right has really got the undying loyalty, and it's just amazing. These are people who would have never voted Republican before. You see these trucks and everything going down the road with a Trump flag on them. It's just a very strange appeal that he has. That some of that even defies understanding. But I did my best to try to explain it as well as I know it anyway. But anyway, that's my take on the Trump factor. And we get a lot of people that will put, will comments in here too about why do you people vote against your own self-interest? And I'm like, well, I don't. What's not in our self-interest about voting for Trump? I don't get it. Why would voting for Biden or Harris been any better? I don't understand, because they appeal to, and for better or worse, the Democratic Party appeals to identity politics now, which is minorities, infringed people. That's who they play to. That's just how it goes, and they don't really make any bones about it at this point. So I don't see what exactly benefit. If Harris wins, how's it going to be any better for my life? I don't get it. But anyway, not to say that Trump would be any better either, but at least he tries to pretend like he cares, whether he does or not. At least he says he does. That means something, doesn't it? Moving right along. Now, the issue of the day, too, is this. There have been headlines here this past week, last few days, about transgender boxers. There's two female supposedly males fighting as women in the Olympics. And so that percolated for a couple of days. Nobody really pushed against it. So a lot of, there was a groundswell of negativity toward these women fighting. And then after a couple of days, then all of a sudden there's a tide turning of, oh no, they're not. They are women. They were born women. They've lived their whole lives as women. So now you're a bigot, and now somehow they even worked racism into it. But anyway, here's my take on that. So I have, if you don't know anything else about me, know that I am a huge boxing fan, have been my whole life. If I'm 53 years old, I liked boxing since I was about 4 or 5 years old. I'd sit there with my dad, watch it religiously. So I've got about 48 years under my belt. I've sparred hundreds of times. I love boxing. I lived for it. At one point in my life, it was by far my favorite sport. So I know a little bit about this. And I vowed to not watch even 5 minutes of the Olympics, but I'm not quite at 5. I watched a couple of minutes. I watched the Iman Khalif fight the Italian, whose name escapes me, but Carini, I guess. But I went back and watched Khalif from 2022. I went on YouTube here, and I looked up her fighting Amy Broadhurst, and this is a fight she lost. Now, a lot of people here now lately, too, have been saying, oh, she's not that, this is not legitimate. Your people are biased against her. She's lost 9 fights. She has 30-some wins and 9 losses. Gosh, what's wrong with you people? Well, I went back and watched her fight Amy Broadhurst, and let me tell you, I don't, you may know more about boxing than I give you credit for, but I'll try to explain it to the folks that don't know. Khalif, even back then, had a really decent jab, and she basically stayed in that fight. She lost this fight to Amy Broadhurst, but she stayed in it because she had a decent jab. But her right hand was absolutely pathetic. She had the worst training I have ever seen in my life. I've seriously seen people come into a gym, and in the first lesson would be taught how to throw punches better with the right hand. She could swing it like she's hitting someone with a hammer. You cannot get any leverage. You can get no torque doing that. You could hit somebody in the face. It's not going to make any impact whatsoever. And she still stayed in this fight with her terrible technique. And I'll try to get a clip up here of that to just show you how pathetic it was. So I thought, man, if she's still this bad and it's competitive, I don't get it. So I went back. I watched the Carini fight. She had really improved. So if you're a left hand, if you're a right-handed person, I should say, you lead with your jab hand, but you also throw the right as your power punch, not normally. In this case, she has really developed her right hand punching, and was always taught, when you're throwing a right hand, it kind of comes out like a bullet out of a chamber. You're throwing it, and it kind of it turns, and your hips go into it too, and you drive your legs, and then you turn it over and try to hit them with the first couple of knuckles, and boom, that's where you get your power from. Well, she had dramatically improved her right hand punching technique, and she is a devastating puncher for a female. So much so that I personally don't believe she's a female. I don't think it's possible. I saw Christy Martin in person 2 or 3 times fight. She was back when she was Christy Salters, and if you don't remember her, she was at one time the pound for pound best female boxer in the world. She was from Mullins, West Virginia, and she used to come to Bristol and fight and all that. And I've watched her 2 or 3 times. Good puncher, solid technique. She couldn't hold a candle to the power this gal has, or I use the term loosely because I'm not sure what her background is, but yeah. But anyway, this gal, much more power, much more leverage. And the problem is, too, she's quite a bit taller. And anybody that knows boxing knows a lot of times these tall, rangy fighters get a lot of power behind that as well. And that's like Thomas Hearns. I mean, this lady looks like a female Thomas Hearns. There's no way in the world that a natural woman can throw power like that. I've never seen it before in my life. No, never at any weight class, and there's just no way my functional brain will accept that this is a God-given, just born female. Now, or I should say, without some sort of an advantage. I believe all the stories that have came out. I did some research. I feel like she has lived her life as a female from birth. I feel like both of these ladies have. Iman Khalif and Lin Yu Ting have both lived their lives as females, but they have some sort of an advantage, whether it's elevated testosterone or XY chromosome. There's something that they have that gives them that extra power that other women do not have, and it's an unfair advantage. Now, leaving the transgender element out of it, I believe that there has to be some sort of standard put in place, because this is just not. I mean, boxing is the hurt business. That's what it's called. You're intentionally. The best way you can win is by knocking someone out, making someone lose consciousness. And as savage as that sounds, if somebody has an unfair advantage, it'd be like giving somebody a roll of coins in their fist, or you know, give them a hammer to try to hit people with. It's a huge advantage. There's just no way in this world that this is legitimate, and I would never in a million years, I've got 2 daughters, allow one of my daughters to get in the ring with somebody like that, because I know the difference. And I don't care. I don't have to be a biologist. I don't have to hear about the testosterone levels. I don't have to hear about X, Y. When the eyeball test tells me that there's no way that this is a legitimate female within the normal bounds of biology. There's no way. It's not possible. The Lin Yuting is not as clear cut. She just doesn't have the kind of power, and her technique's pretty poor too. But you know, the thing that worries me, and my biggest concern, is not so much about all the semantics. It's somebody's going to get hurt, and it's just not. It's not acceptable to me that you put somebody in here with this big advantage to try to make a political statement. So why in the world are we trying to politicize things like this? It just should be common sense. It should be, hey, not everything is for everybody. If you have an unfair advantage, especially in the combat sports, something has to be done about that. You can't, I don't care how it hurts somebody's feelings or whatever. That doesn't matter when you're given this a huge advantage that could end up injuring someone or, God forbid, killing them. And you're having this humongous advantage over somebody unfairly. So, and I'm 1,001% against transgender. If you're born a man, fighting against women or swimming against them or weightlifting or anything else. But I don't care if you're born a woman. If you have this major abnormal advantage, then something has to be accounted for here. It's just not. This is not healthy. This is not good for anybody. So that's my take on that. Like I said, I feel like weighing in because I've had a huge history in boxing, and I know what I'm seeing. I don't have to be told by somebody who has an agenda, and I don't know why things like this have to be politicized. It's not everybody on the left is against them, and everybody on the right. I feel sorry for these ladies. I do. I feel bad that they were born, they lived their lives, but if you've got a ridiculously unfair advantage in fighting, this can't go on. So then somebody needs to do something about setting the standards on this kind of thing. Oh, one more thing too I wanted to say is, it's funny too, like if you cross the trans bullies, as I like to call them, they will, it's almost like the Twilight Zone episode. If anybody's ever, I'm a huge fan of that series, so if you're a fan of the Twilight Zone, you've probably seen this episode with a little kid. If you make him mad, cross him in any way, he'll wish you into the cornfields. Well, I feel like that's the way it goes with what I call the trans bullies. If you don't agree with everything they say immediately, and if you question, you so much as question anything, they'll try to wish you into the cornfields. It's like, this is get you canceled, and you may never see me again after opining on this today.
You're a bad man. You're a very bad man. And you keep thinking bad thoughts about me. And you mustn't think bad thoughts about me either, or I'll do the same thing to you.
I guess I'll just opine in the cornfields, I guess, because I'm not giving in to this nonsense anymore. I can't take it. I'm not going to get bullied by, just because I have a different opinion. It's all mine. That's just an opinion. Who am I? I'm nothing. I'm just some dude with a camera that sticks them on YouTube. So however relevant that makes me, then so be it. So anyway, that's a take on that. That'll be a good place to wrap up this one, episode 3, and we'll get back to hillbilly things one of these days. Maybe, hopefully. Keep our fingers crossed.